said, be brave, my son, I'll be home soon. The boy held on to hope till he got that awful news. And as they folded up the stars and stripes, 21 guns pointed towards the sky. As the shots rang out, he flinched a little each time. Then a soldier in his best dress walked up to him, and you know the rest.
Operation Encore is a 501c nonprofit that is helping veterans turn into rock stars every single day. You can learn more about what Operation Encore is doing by going over to their website at www.operationencore.org. That is www.operationencore.org. If you can give them a hand, just click that little donate button or follow all of their social medias and learn exactly what they are doing to change the lives of our veterans every single day. Hey, welcome everybody to Spirits and Stories. I'm your host, Donald Dunn. I want to thank y'all for listening. I know, you guys give me something that is more precious than money, and that is your time for choosing to watch. So I want to appreciate it. Today, we have got a very interesting guest. I am very interested in things like the paranormal and psychic. I do believe in this type of stuff. I also believe there is a great group of people out there that are doing a lot of good stuff behind the scenes, helping our law enforcement and so forth. So today's guest is Nancy Orlean Weber. She is a psychic detective and author who has worked as a consultant to law enforcement agencies for over 40 years. She has written a book titled The Life of a Psychic Detective, which is an autobiography that details her experiences and techniques for finding missing persons and evidence related to crimes. Weber has received endorsements from detectives she worked with and has been featured in multiple television documentaries about her work, which continues to be shown worldwide. Her book also discusses her personal spiritual journey as a psychic and how it has influenced her work as a consultant to law enforcement. Let's bring on Nancy Orlean. There we go. Hey, how you doing?
Well, after a few tears that were shed with that song, does everybody shed tears when they hear it?
I'm going to, a funny story about that song. So one of the things that we do, I have a radio station that I run that plays nothing but music from military veterans that are trying to in the industry. And I heard that song from Joe Allen Christie. He is a Air Force veteran. And in my past, I've had to do a lot of military funerals. And I don't think there's anything out there that is more ceremonial than the way a military funeral is done. And he captures that song. That song captures the spirit of how that ceremony is held. So it is an amazing song. And I think Joe Allen Christie is going to be an amazing singer, probably cost thousands of dollars in one day. So
I would imagine that somebody who can speak to the heart of anybody, regardless of what they even think of it, right? Yeah. Regardless of their politics, religion, or anything, it goes right to the heart of everything. It was an amazing song. Shout out to him. Tell him, wow. Huh. Catch my breath. Really, really incredible. Brought it home.
Yeah.
As it's meant to be.
Yep. I out of the, I'm kind of biased, and I shouldn't be because I run a radio station, but there's a couple singers that they're on that some of their music just touches me. I mean, I can relate to it. Shannon Book's got a song called Not Alone. Joe Allen Christie with Keep the Flag, which is that song there that we just heard. And then JB Brown's got a few as well. And so some of those songs, man, especially for the veteran community, they really do relate to, because they're life experiences. They're singing from the things that they lived.
I think it's a teaching moment for people who don't know and don't think about it. And also, as I said, it doesn't matter what political stand, war, no war, peace, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This song has a gift of teaching that few do. I
Yeah.
know in that way. It was, and I have goosebumps because I need to say something to him when he listens to you. There were two instances in my life. One was driving my car in New York City, convertible, top down, young woman, new group from the UK, first time singing on the radio in the US. I went, they're going to be one of the biggest hits ever, the Beatles. And the second one was hearing a guy from Oklahoma in New York listening and saying, he's going to cross over everything. And he probably will go down in history as the one who crossed everything over and has taken everybody on a ride beautifully. Garth Brooks.
Yes.
Sometimes you find the heart, and I went to many of his concerts. I forced my husband to get up 5 a.m. Don't get tickets. Don't come back without them. So, yeah, well, I knew that the energy of what somebody brings into the music and into if anything, I'm a very poor lyricist. I've written 12 songs with a folk singer. I love lyrics. I love poetry. I love essays, novels, nonfiction. I have thousands of pieces of paper all over the house, but they're neatly stored. Mm-hmm. But when I hear lyrics backed up with the kind of music that accentuates the lyrics, mm-hmm. I know that should be heard by everybody.
Yeah.
And that song did it. It's rare. It's a rare way of approaching and breaking open hearts. There's an ancient, I think it's Hebrew, saying, only the broken heart is an open heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody who has a steel trap heart, so to speak, it takes, you don't want to wait for such trauma in your life that you break open.
Yeah.
You want to hear something like that song to make a difference in you. I pray he gets to be so well known.
I don't think so I've talked to him. I've met him in person. He comes to a lot of our events. He is an amazing veteran. And he's so humble. I don't even think he realizes the hit that he is saying. I mean, he wrote that song.
He needs to be, because lyrics like that are channeled.
Yeah.
They're from the creator.
Yep.
We're all instruments. And when we know that, there's no ego at that moment. Yep. Could have your ego 2 seconds later. But while you are part of the universal desire to do something productive on this earth, mm-hmm. whatever it is, if your ego is put aside, so to speak, you're not thinking about yourself. You're thinking about those listening, those hearing, those who need it, who will benefit, like you're doing, like he did, like the other singers, lyricists you mentioned. Yeah, that's what it takes to be part of a universal ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
And we call it channeling, but I also think of it as we are instruments of the light. We're instruments of whatever we hold as a philosophy, religion, whatever, but we are instruments. And what we do with it determines who we are.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And the other part of that, kind of like what you just said, is until you find your place and your path, and I don't mean, as a kid, I grew up wanting to be a professional football player, but I have learned now, since I've started this nonprofit, that would have never been my path. I'm on the path that I was chosen to be on. And once you get there, you feel it. Something changes inside you that you find more of an inner peace because you're enjoying it. And it's truly happiness, not a material happiness. And there's a difference.
Big difference. I love listening to this. Oh, it's so cool. Go ahead, keep going. It's so much fun. I love like-minded. I love when people, the priorities. There's something I ask people to do occasionally, to write down 3 of your top priorities in your life. And then when they're done writing that down, I say, now write down the 3 top things you do every day. And if they're not a match, take a look at it.
Yeah.
Right. So, I learned, I guess when I was young, really young, that if you're reading a philosophy, Buddhism, or you're going to a synagogue or church or temple or whatever, it doesn't matter, Hindi, Muslim, blah, blah. If you're reading it from a book somebody wrote, whether it's thousands of years ago, like the Tibetan Book of the Dead or the Old Testament or New Testament, yada, Quran, if you're reading that, they're words.
Mm-hmm.
They're not action.
Yeah.
And if you're interpreting it, that's one thing. But if you're taking action and living what you believe is the heart of what they're saying, word soul is not a word, it's a presence.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I love it. Makes me happy.
Yeah, I at the end of the day, I think if more people took that time to not say, oh, I wanted to do this, or I feel like I'm meant to do this, I just don't have time to do X, Y, and Z. If you sat down and really analyzed, if it's important to you, why are you not doing it? That should be the question that's being asked. And people have not. I get told all the time, I don't know how you do what you do, because I work a full-time job, and then when I come home, I work on my podcast show, the nonprofit, up until the time that I go to bed. I run 3 radio channels. I have the magazine for our veteran authors, and I also help with the overall nonprofit that we're building, Heroes Voice Media Foundation, and that entails 5 websites. I run 3 out of the 5 of them. So, but I don't even think about it, because it's I love doing it.
Exactly. Well, somebody looking from the outside, right? They're measuring.
Yep.
They're measuring themselves against what you can accomplish. Oh my God, how could you do all that, right? And I like telling them there's no how. I'm 80. I've got more work than I've ever had, more projects than I've ever had. I piled them up. I ran 2 nonprofits. I created them. Right. I created one with my husband, and the other one was created for us. It was all about well-being and health care.
Yep.
And we were activists about healthcare. And so I still am. I create certification programs. I teach master instructorship. I create new programs as I go. So I have several fields I work in. And I'm listening to you and going, nailed it.
What? I appreciate that.
It's great. And yes, why wouldn't you be able to do all these things? These are things you care about.
Yeah.
And there's no how ever. The how comes after we take the steps, not before.
Yep.
How would we know what steps to take? We have to bumble along until we get to the results we are looking for to achieve. And if we are given that zigzag maze to go through because we think we're supposed to be this, and the universe, our creator, has I call it the universal algorithms. knows what is really there, not just my conscious mind going, oh, when I grow up, I want to live in.
Yep.
Or, no, I will never get married. I didn't want marriage at all. I said, I'll have kids. My mother thought she stopped dead in the street and said, what? I said, well, I don't know if I ever want to live with a man for my whole life. So I lived with 3 different husbands.
Yep.
The last one is the one that stuck 35 years. And so it's funny, but I understood then that it's easy when you're sensitive and emotional, too much out of balance, maybe, that you tend to drown in the other person, particularly women. Yeah. I think. I don't know men, how they do that as much. They like to please, for sure, and sometimes at the cost of themselves greatly. Yeah. But it's a different kind of set, right? Yep. So for women, I had to develop the boundaries very clearly. And once I did, life became so much more powerful to behold every moment. It was so different when I stopped looking for approval or need or any of that and just went, and this is what I like to do. Yeah. Oh, I will find a way. Well, you said it so well, Donald, when you said that it's not, I can't find the time because I'm always working. Yeah. I meant to some people who would love to do more, and they get that, some of them get into that trap. Yeah. And they need to see it is not about how to find time. You make time. Right. You just make the time. And you wheedle out something, and that's where priorities come into play. Yep. Is it really a priority to watch that show? Is it really a priority to eat that extra thing that you're not supposed to eat? That's 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 10 minutes, an hour, what? You could be doing something more productive if you chose. And if you want to rest, then you rest, but you have to know it consciously, the difference, right? So I love,
Well, let's dig into a little bit. Let's start with where did you grow up, and when did you find your gifts?
I grew up in Brooklyn, and I was very independent by the time I was 2. I had a vision of a man by my crib who, when I had a question about anything, I heard the answer in my mind as if he spoke with me. And I thought that was interesting. And I never questioned that as a child, but I never told anybody. Yeah. Didn't speak about it. And I remember at probably, I think it was 15 or so, don't know. My sister was pregnant with her second kid, entering the 9th month. And I woke up in the morning and the man had told me about the birth. So I ran. My sister was sleeping overnight to go to the doctor in the morning with her husband. And I ran there. They were all sitting and talking, my parents and them. And I said, Anita, you're giving birth at 2:56 p.m. tomorrow to a 7-pound, 11.5-ounce little blonde boy. Oh, thank you. No question. My sister never questions it. My mother didn't want to hear. She goes to the doctor. He says, oh, you got another few weeks to go. You're high. Tuesday morning, her water break, she goes in. And all I heard back then, my parents were present. They came home and they said, the doctor came running out at 3 o'clock and said, burn your daughter or your daughter's sister at the stake. She's a witch. Now, they may have been laughing when they said that, but they didn't look like it was funny. I took it as, all right, I'm never talking to anybody again. Yeah. I was still crying and my nose was leaking and right now for the song. Oh. So sporadically throughout my childhood, I had lots of different visions, lots of different knowing that people around me knew I knew. Mm-hmm. My sister brought home every boyfriend and asked me to sit with them and then ask me what I thought. And she would drop them if I said, I wouldn't trust him with anything. I'd be 6 and 8 and 10 and whatever.
Yeah.
And when I met her future husband, I concocted a scheme with his brother to get them together. A little bit of Nancy Drew thrown in as a child.
Yeah.
It wasn't until nursing that I understood. I didn't quite call it a gift yet, but I knew it was different.
Yeah.
You know, and the very first episode of in nursing was a few months in, not long. I'm sitting at the station, and the doctor hands me an order, and the patient's wheeled by, and I said, "He doesn't have congestive heart failure. Why'd you put that in?" He said, "Why?" I said, "Go do an upper GI." 19 years old. What a mouth. And I never had a mouth when I was young. I was a good little girl. Yes, I never said no. So he looked at me, and I was so adamant, I guess. He said, "Yeah, well, I'll go for that." He came back and he said, "How did you know?" And I never forget. I said, "You don't see it? Hiatal hernia?" He said, "How did you know that?" I said, "I see it. Don't you?" So that put a question mark. I still didn't think of it as a gift.
Yeah.
I thought of it as, at age 20, I put together some more. I found the first crime working at an isolation nursery, Maimonides, and I'm at lunch, and nurses are talking about this doctor in the labor and delivery who strangled the baby whose cord was already tight, and she strangled it because she didn't know how to undo it. I tried to get the name of the doctor. They wouldn't tell me. And about a couple of weeks later, in comes this newborn, and I see the doctor's order, and it says 25 milligrams of digoxin. That would kill about 100 horses easily on the spot. That would kill at least 100 of us on the spot.
Wow.
Right? Normal dose for an adult human is 0.25 milligrams. For a baby, it's 0.025 milligrams. So I figured, what can I do? So I called the doctor and I said, "I need you to take a look at the orders." She argued, "I don't have time." I said, "Well, then I can't give it." So she came up, looked at the chart quickly and signed her name and furiously walked out. I called my supervisor. I said, "I need you here. I have to go to the bathroom." Meanwhile, I had taken the order with me, didn't go to the bathroom, went to a Xerox copy, made a copy, put it in my bra, came back and looked at her and said, "Look at the order." And she goes, "Well, if the baby dies, it's not your fault." I said, "What are you talking about? I didn't give it. I conned her to sign it." "Oh, well, what do you want to do?" I said, "You call the chief of pediatrics now and get him in here now." So he comes in with his entourage, and I looked at him. I showed him the order, and he goes, "I'll have a talk with her." And my mouth just kept going. That's not good enough. You're going to uncover why she's still a doctor here, or I go to the news tomorrow morning. You've got as many hours as 9 a.m. tomorrow has. 9 a.m. he showed up and said to me, "She doesn't have a medical license."
Wow.
Yep. And I think, how many babies have you? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So again, I didn't put together that it's intuition, it's a gut feeling, it's psychic, it's also knowledge base. It's also puzzle finding. I'm a puzzle person.
Yep.
And so that's the first one I recall clearly as an adult in nursing. So sporadically throughout nursing. And then when I hit the psych unit, experimental one, hardly any meds, acute psychotics, 20-year psychotics and mental institutes taken out for reevaluation, 10-day stay. We made history in New York. I could see why the hallucination was there, what it contained. what history was packed in. And sometimes in minutes, we could break through. And sometimes it took 8 to 10 days, and occasionally we couldn't do anything. So we would just start. But we did home visits for a year following that. We took people who were burning themselves. One woman, 20 years, staying in an apartment. And within looking up at her instantly, was the first one I remember, I could see this blonde woman in her belly. She was a beautiful black 60-something-year-old woman who had been burning her body for 20 years and not going out of her apartment. And I ran over to her. I said, "Who's Celia?" And she said, "You see her?" I said, "I sure do." I said, "Long blonde hair?" And she said, "That blonde so-and-so." And I said, "Yeah, but it was your home and your husband in bed with her." She said, "Yes, and they threw me out." I said, "But it's your husband. Aren't you angry at him?"
Yeah.
She didn't know what to say. So we ended up holding hands, walking back and forth on the hall, talking about the history and how good her daughter and son-in-law are to her and how they've helped her over the years. Took her home 10 days later because she could talk. She no longer. And I said, "Is Celia still there?" She said, "Just a little bit." And I saw she had a lot of little figurines of saints. So I made a circle around her as she sat at the kitchen table in her apartment. And I am not, my religious affiliation is more universal. None. But I've had visions of Christ. I've had visions of other things. I don't talk about usually. I just slipped it in here carefully. But I usually keep them quiet just because it's not me. It's not my style to go into it. I question everything I do anyhow and everything that occurs. But in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, I prayed for her because that's her prayer. That's her belief.
Yeah.
So, even as a minister, I have done a wedding in a Catholic church. The priest gave it to me to do. And so I do what they believe in. I love it. Right. And so it's not about me. And it wasn't about me for this woman with Celia. Did a year's home visit. She cooked, she cleaned, she cleared up. She didn't do any of it anymore. It was all gone. And she was grieving over what a so-and-so her husband had been. She got to the truth. So we did a lot of those things. We were on fire with it, literally, until a fire really broke out. And I called it 24 hours before. And the patient who did it wasn't even there at the time. That put it together for me.
Wow.
It took all that. It took all that before I went, "Oh, this is different." And I had witnesses. I smelled smoke 24 hours before, and I called in my staff and I said, "There's smoke in this empty room, like a fire." And they said, "What drug are you on?" I said, "Very funny." 24, exactly to the minute, the fire was set.
Wow.
And so a few other things happened. I'm writing it my third book, and then I left nursing. Between that and my first husband had tried to murder me when I was pregnant with his baby. So I had a physical disability. I had the fire, and I had an offer to be the co-researcher for New York State psychiatry with the head of it. And I turned it down. I had no idea what I would do.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and had a second child, because what else do you do when you say you may be paralyzed? I said, "Oh, well, if I'm going to be, I may as well have 2 kids to play with."
Yeah.
But I wasn't. I ended up having within 6 months of having my child, my second one, I was working full-time as a psychic.
Wow.
With 3 different psychiatrists, either coming for classes or having me see all their clients once a week. Different places: Connecticut, Scarsdale, New York, and Peekskill, where I lived. Just crazy. I mean, it was, what is going on here? But it was so much fun to help people every which way and just say, "Look, It's not under a nursing license. I have no idea what I'm doing. If you want me to help, let me take a look and I'll just tell you. And eventually one of them said, when he brought clients in, he'd say, welcome to the hot seat. Nancy, here you go. I went, is that what they think of it? Oh, I'm in trouble. Oh, yeah, I agree. I agree. How dare they call it a hot seat?
Yeah.
Thank you. I love it.
I think they hear my mom coming home.
Yeah. Love. It's love.
Yeah. Well, we got my uncle's dog that we are watching while he's in the hospital. So she barks at everything because it's all new to her.
How sweet, though.
Yeah.
I love. Yeah. I can't walk dogs now. I'm temporary. I can walk, but I need a seat. I can't stand very long now. Mm-hmm. But I taught yoga, karate, skip belts. I loved it all. Didn't teach karate. I did it. But I had a ball doing everything until COVID. And that kind of slowed down things. But age has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, my mom's 85 and
yep.
She's good. Still active and
sure.
She probably outworks me. I'm not going to lie.
I wear out a lot of people, but my daughters like that too.
Yeah. You know, I do believe that is an important part of, being able to stay active is what keeps people going.
Brain. I want to stay my mind intact.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. That was one of the reasons why I just released my first book was because my memory is failing. And I think it's TBI related. I didn't really put it together until recently. Yeah. But I just thought it was the medication that the VA was giving me from PTSD. And the more I have kind of done some inner searching, I don't think it's so much of PTSD as it is TBI. And so I'm going back to get reevaluated for it. But, just in that book, I struggled trying to match dates and times and places. Sometimes I would be thinking of something that happened in Iraq, but it was actually Afghanistan or vice versa. And I used to just kind of blow it off as I deployed so much, it just all ran together. But
so you've never had a good timeline on the traumas, right?
No.
Okay. So because I have to stay very compliant about certain things in healthcare, extremely, because I study many fields in it, and I am a medical intuitive. I don't operate under the license. So the only thing I can say to you right now is speak to you later, if you like.
Okay. All right.
I know that timeline always, for almost everybody, whether it's TBI or PTSD or anything else, gets messed up for a while. Yeah. It sometimes never straightens out. The reason I actually have a good timeline, I was taking notes all along. Because for the life of me, I think I had maybe 11 nursing jobs or 9, something like that. But without writing down every one of them as I did them, I wouldn't remember which one came first unless something incident happened and I go, oh yeah, then that's it, etc. Yeah, because I know I had PTSD, but I don't. And so one of the things I would also suggest to you that I can say is just to support your concerns, not the brain necessarily, but look up adrenal stress index.
Okay.
And just read, because when it's functioning better, it means that the central nervous system is attempting to heal at least. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. That's it.
Absolutely.
Onward.
I kind of want to back up a little bit because we covered a lot as far as how you got. But I'm curious, who do you think that person you were seeing when you were in your crib was?
Okay. I don't know that I ever publicly said this at all. And as I'm writing my third book, it's coming up again that I have to explain a little deeper. So I didn't know who it was. He had this kind of burlappy clothing, old sandal, flat hand-woven sandals. But most of the time I just saw his face. Black, thick, bushy hair, black eyes, dark skin, like Mideastern, Mediterranean, Mideastern. And it wasn't until I began giving readings that he put a name to himself, because I didn't see him again from 13 to 31.
Wow.
Right. I heard a couple of times, but information kept coming through, but it wasn't clear where it came from. And I always thought it was like a lightning bolt that I couldn't control. When I started at 31, after leaving my nursing career, I was giving a reading to a 16-year-old. Her mom was a friend who actually ended up transcribing all the transmediumship I did with him for 3 years. I'm a risk taker in certain respects, willing to see how the mind works and not afraid of it. So he came. I thought he was there for her. And I said, oh, you're her teacher or soul or whatever. And he said, no. I said, okay. I said, I remember you. He said, I am here with you for 3 years. I said, for 3 years? I said, who are you? And he shouted his name. I said, would you please spell it? Charming, I know. Yeah. And so he spelled it, Ezekiel. And I said, that's familiar. Huh? Because I didn't grow up religious about anything. So I went to churches, I went to synagogues to hear people and go, some of them are reading from a book and some of them have nice things to say, but I don't know. I mean, I did that in my teens and early on. So I'm sitting there experimenting with everything and finish the reading, run upstairs to my encyclopedia and look up the name. And I freaked out, closed the book and said, not telling anybody. That just means maybe I am hallucinating. Nope, because I can talk about it. So scratch that. I went through everything it could possibly be.
Yeah.
And I would get instructions from him every day after that. Every day. And then one day I could feel a weird sensation that he wanted to partner with me, speak through me. And I thought, oh, that's weird stuff, because I didn't read any of the books about it. I like cold. I don't want to know anything until I do what I do. Yeah. And one day I kept saying, oh, this is crazy. I don't know what this is, and I'm not interested. You want to teach me? Teach me. It's probably part of me projecting out. Now, I was always cold, low blood sugar, low blood pressure, very low. And so one day I said, okay. I got warm instantly. And I thought, well, this is a plus. And then whenever I had things like one of the two astrologers who put all the computer computations online, she came as a client, and I have no idea about astrology at all. I had no idea about anything. Yeah. I just did my own thing, and I didn't know anybody did anything. And I had no idea, so I called on him and said, astrology. Closed my eyes, got into a trance, and explained her natal chart, her progress chart, geometry, how it's planetary movements. And I'm listening to it and I'm going, I hope I remember half of this later because I never thought that way.
Yeah.
And then later, I can remember my second husband would pump me about things when I was in a trance. And I got ticked because of whatever. And I said, look, you cannot keep asking me these things. So as soon as he could, he would ask me again. And instead, I said, okay, Ezekiel, if you're here, listen to me. I want you to do something that I couldn't possibly know. Right? And all of a sudden, I was describing how to build a nuclear reactor. Now, so the second husband was a chemist, Brown University. He understood, and it shut him up. And that's my style. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I would argue with the whatever it was. I'd say one day, maybe you're not, maybe you're a fragment of my personality. That sounds better. I think so. But why would I choose you? And he said, if anything, you're a fragment of mine. And I said, well, that's nice. My brain's arguing with itself. Not unusual. So I still have no answers. I know I had many, many lessons, not only from him, but others that came like that. And I said, oh my God, it's the living Bible. Why? And they said, well, remember one thing. And this what did matter to me. And I kept it in mind. The reason we recall people is for the highlighted things they did in their world and their life. That doesn't mean they didn't have all the same human mistakes and errors.
Yeah.
And that really put it in place beautifully for me. And then I didn't care who they were. They could speak.
Yeah.
And so visions of a Christ-like figure where other people saw it but didn't hear it, and it's talking to me. And I'm going, this is interesting. Okay, what else am I supposed to be doing? It's just, go for it. If it's harmless, code of ethics.
Yeah.
No matter what it is, it's a code of ethics, and it is compassion and kinship with all life. Simple.
I'm going to apologize because I can't remember her name, but I had another lady on that was a medium, and she said a lot of the same similar things. The first time that she crossed over, it was somebody there that was kind of teaching her, and she really didn't get good details until the more and more and more that they interacted, and now she's kind of accepted and has gone on to do some great things. I do apologize if she sees this. I just, for the life of me, I can't remember her name, but
she'll remember.
Yeah, I'm sure she will. But I just, listening to you, I thought it was fascinating about how some of the descriptions were really the same. So I think that is neat, especially when you can get it from people that don't even know each other. It's I don't know. It's just really fascinating to have things. The everybody gets them. Everybody has those.
Absolutely.
But the more and more that I start researching it and learning about remote viewing, that the government, has had it or has a program with it.
Yes.
And all that stuff is just so fascinating because I do think the mind is capable.
Two things come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a time perhaps on this earth where people knew and didn't argue the point that there is more than a body.
Yeah.
And it's not just a word.
Yeah.
It is where we live in a form on this earth because it's a manifestation of soul and life, energetic fields throughout everything. Doesn't matter where and who and what. And once there was a time, I believe, pockets on this earth, not all, because I think from the very first cave day, earthquakes raised testosterone and fear like nobody's business. And my cave is ruined. Pick up a billy club to somebody else's cave to get it.
Yeah.
Right? Or the tiger at the entrance, right? Saber-tooth.
Yep.
So those things have always happened. But also what I believe has always happened, there are beings, whether it's a whale or a dolphin or a spider or human, who raises up the frequency for all. I have a cousin through my husband, Tommy. He was a firefighter. I think he was something like a Navy SEAL, but it was a very specialized piece. They dropped him out of a helicopter in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean for 20 minutes to see what would happen. And as soon as he dropped, a pod of humpback whales encircled him, protecting him.
Really?
Uh-huh. And they stayed with him until he was picked up and in the helicopter. Right.
Wow.
And so many things have happened throughout the world. Now that we have mass communication, we know that. I think for a lot of people who talk to me about it, they get hooked on the psychic detective thing. But I tell them, one woman yesterday, I think we were talking, she said, I want to be one. I said, can you live with what you see for the rest of your life? You tell me you are very empathetic. So am I. But I also have boundaries. And I know when to fall apart and when not to. Can you do that? I said, if you can, then happily I can train you. But you need to know the negatives along with the positive, the pros and cons for yourself as an individual. And can you put all ego aside and not care if you are right or wrong? And can you live with never knowing the answer? And if you cannot, don't go near it.
Yeah.
And if you think you're not part of the team, but you're it, don't go near it. I said, just think about that. And if you like it, come on in. If you don't, stay away. But what it does is the same thing for everybody who has a passion like you do, like the songs that are written by the vets, like so many that we run into that have a passion for doing good in the world, right? What it taught me is if you can focus working in a team with law enforcement of any kind. I've worked with commissioners and federal agencies and locals all over the country, different things. If you can live with it well, right? And not need pat on the back, right? And not need others to say, oh my God, look at how you did it. Quite the contrary. You're dealing with horrible things. There's nothing to brag about. There's nothing to boast about. There's nothing to do anything about other than do what you can and leave the rest to our Creator. You're called in on a mission, do the mission. You're not called in, say no. They ask, well, why don't you do it when you're not? Why don't you just, Summer Wells, the baby. There were people who got nasty as all hell with me. Aren't you working on Summer Wells? I thought you could find people. What's wrong with you? And my answer would be, well, number one, I never talk about anything I'm working on or anything that's not fully adjudicated. And certainly never on social media.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking. That's my whole answer to everybody about everything. I took an oath as a nurse, as a minister, and as an auxiliary police officer. I took training at the academy upon request. And I've had 2 badges, etc. So my favorite badge is in my wallet, in the police wallet. I won't. Being female though, I will not take a regular wallet. People have tried. My daughter runs a store and she goes, "Do you want?" No. I earned this one. I love this one. It represents something very unique and very dear to my heart. And I think it's really important to understand that whatever we do is benefiting us in focus, in challenges. You talk about you probably have a TBI. Well, everything you are doing and having created and focus is helping heal it, whether you cognitively can chart it out or not. It becomes this quantum leap of, oh, suddenly everything's working right. Did you ever hear the ginkgo biloba tree?
I have not.
Okay. It's the oldest living tree species on the planet, 2 million years old, I think. And the wild species is now rare around the earth. But we have it in New York City. We have it everywhere. It's a double leaf biloba. In Hiroshima, it was the only thing that regenerated.
Wow.
A friend of mine, when it came out as an herb, a friend of mine had started taking it and said, "Hey, meet me at a restaurant for lunch." I said, "Oh, great." Well, I could, at that time, we didn't have GPS. I could get lost in the paper bag in east, west, north, south, although I crisscrossed the country several times fine. But AAA hated me when it came to certain areas. And so I'd get the directions from them. And I say, "Okay, now reverse it." They said, "Just reverse it." And I go, I'll land in another town. I don't know. So it was this particular area where the restaurant was that had about 6 different big signs up about where to go. And that would drive me around knowing I better have a full tank, because until I find my way, who knows?
Yeah.
So I got to the place because I knew how to get there, but I couldn't figure out, am I east or west? That kind of thing. So we sat and had lunch, and she handed me a capsule of ginkgo biloba from West Germany, the first ones. And I took it, and I had water. I can't stand alcohol, can't stand the smell, never could. Thank you. One gift.
Yeah.
Hey, I worked in the South Bronx. Different world.
I bet.
Oh, yeah. So do I. and I get in my car. I look at the signs. I go, oh, okay. I have to go west. And then north. Who's this? Right? So sometimes, because I knew and looked the history up, it regenerated when nothing else could. And I thought, well, I need to be on that for me, because I'm looking for regeneration of my central nervous system, which was attacked. And I had plenty of head injuries. So I was always looking for what could help. And what I also found is, as you do, when you're productive, you're not afraid and you're not worried.
Correct.
So it lowers the stressor hormones. Big time. Yep. Producing anything, I don't care what it is, right?
Yeah. It's like you're reading from my book, because there's a chapter where I talk about this, and not everything that I did this with was positive. I got into Texas Hold'em, and I was when you're either in or you're out, and I was all in, as they say. From the time I got off work to sometimes 2 hours before PT, and had to put my uniform on and go back to work. And at that time, I didn't know what I was doing, but it was the only time that I had peace, even though
you were focused.
Yep.
Well, yep. I think the brain is this machinery that actually is striving to heal, and your soul is sending it a message: go do Texas Hold'em. It's something he could focus on.
Yeah.
your soul understood what you needed and how to inform the body. This is what you do. But as you were saying that, and it's in your book, I'm going, okay, brother, we're writing the same book. A little different, I must admit. I don't go into all of that. That'll probably be my fourth book. But yeah, and I have to be so compliant, it's pathetic.
Yeah.
So, but that's okay. I teach it both compliant and non-compliant. Having been a researcher when I published something in research, I have to do it totally separate for special needs. Can't call it what it actually is, and then stop, and then come back as totally compliant, separate. I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
The rules that we put on
I didn't hear that.
I said it's crazy the rules that we put on ourselves as a society.
Yes, I think part of it is the changes always in what crowdedness does to people too. And what mass communication stress occurs is, it's a duality. It's got great. Oh my God, it's great. I love it. I love technology.
Yeah,
personally.
me too.
Yeah, I've got my mic set up. I love it all. Preamps, amps, and I went at first, what is that? But then I dive into everything. My husband teaches me. I go, oh, okay, I got it. And if I don't, I'll call you. Yep. I love all of it. My son said, Ma, you were the first person on the block to get the Atari, to get the Palm, to get. I said, well, I grew up with a daddy who was one of the developers of TV. We had the first TV on the block.
Wow.
Right. I'm looking at it all and going, I love it all, but I also know the dangers of them. And when you have all of it pouring out to let everybody know how horrible some things are, you have to counterbalance.
Yep.
Right. Yep. So for me, the life of a psychic detective came about because I was frustrated with I'm not going to teach everybody the techniques I learned one-to-one or small groups, because I like small groups. I like to know people. I better put it in a book. It's simple. And so every adjudicated case that I wanted to give in depth with the detectives, interviews, etc., and all their talking, I put exercises gleaned from those cases so that anybody can develop for everyday life. What people, I think, don't know, it's not a separate category. It's just a different focus. It's like a kaleidoscope. You turn it one way, you're looking at, what do I want for dinner? And maybe I'll make a nice something recipe out of my head. And you turn it another way, and let's go talk to somebody who just passed over and pray for them and see if we can help them. And you turn another, etc. And then speak to the animals. My second book is all about communicating with animals. And a little yellow fish who I loved. Yeah. Oh, he was wonderful. In the ocean, in the British Virgin Isles. Stayed with me. Bumped my nose, sat on my face, sat on my hair. Oh, it was so cool. I love all that. Because there's consciousness everywhere. We know it. Yeah. I think science put it out recently. We're proving there's a universal consciousness. Let's see. I bet you all the tribes back when knew that. And the Hopis knew that for sure.
Yeah. I've seen, I don't remember what show, but I watched or listened to a podcast. And it was on the Sean Ryan show with the guy, the first remote viewer. He talked about tests that they did, testing plant life for.
Oh yeah. Oh sure.
And
the lie detector test. Plants. Yeah, yep. I read that book. I read early on in the 70s. Plants, when it came out, it was like, yay, of course, because Marcel Vogel Marcel Vogel, Vogel, anybody can look up, was a patent designer for IBM and lots of patents, lots of unique things. Went to Russia behind the Iron Curtain once. Was best friends or arch enemies, you can call it whatever, with Dr. Andrea Puharich, who lived 10 minutes from me. And so I met Marcel. And it's one of the things he liked to do is take any plant and just talk to it. Plants don't lie, right? Yep. And we all got exactly the same thing about it. So I have in my basement a gifted plant of philodendron, split Philly. I call her Philly. For 40, I think it's 43 or 44 years. She had 3 leaves when my girlfriend, who's now passed over many years, gave it to me. She could grow anything but that. And Audrey is my best friend. Audrey is now 5 feet tall and 6 feet wide and has babies constantly, whether we remember to water her or not. Audrey has babies and she's so proud of them. So yeah, everything has a consciousness. That's what a guy in Germany wrote about his work with saving trees. He knew that they supported each other. He needed to prove that their root systems go and feed even stumps. They support each other. So the funny part for me is the left hemisphere of the brain is the Western hemisphere of the globe. Right hemisphere is the Eastern. And so in the West, unless we can laboratory analysis prove it, it doesn't exist. Once we prove it, it exists, but it's been there all along. And I go, okay, when you catch up with it, that'd be good. It's the whole brain. And so, and it's the whole soul coming through. And I think the only thing that does that is our priorities are heartfelt. And as you started it before, early on, this conversation, somebody said, I'm not looking for fame or money to be a psychic, as if. And I kind of smiled and I went, oh, what do you eat? Where do you get your money to eat? I know where I get mine many decades. I am most of the support financially, one way or the other for different reasons in my life, for my children forever. And then at 80, I'm working more than ever, but I love it. If I didn't love it, I would have to find some other way, but I wouldn't do anything I didn't love. I always think the old song, I think it was Ernie Ford or so, 16 tons, I say it differently. Sold your soul to the company's gold.
Yeah. I feel like that from about 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Oops. Don't remind yourself of that.
Yeah. No, I don't. There's days I still wonder how I do the job. I'm not going to even lie. But, like I told them up front, I'm just a straightforward person. You know, I don't have any reason to try to get around it.
Nope.
One of the things that you said that I've been thinking about since you said it was when you
remember.
Gotcha. You said that when you were talking to that person that wanted trained, that you have to be able to deal with what you see, right? Mm-hmm. And I think back to how hard it must be to be a paramedic, a cop, a firefighter, because of things that they see. And as I've gone through, I have kind of opened up a little bit. I've had a lot of hatred, for Afghanis and Iraqis from the years that I've served. And I had another soldier on my show. He was a British Army soldier, and we were comparing his time in Afghanistan to mine, and just talking. And at the end of it, he said, I have a podcast too, but he said, it's a mental health podcast. I said, oh, really? I said, you have a podcast about mental health? And he goes, yeah. He said, we just got too many soldiers that are killing themselves. And it was like a light bulb went off. Like, that's not an American problem. I just assumed it was just us doing it. Mm-hmm. And then, after all the years of having these guests, people never served a lot of similar problems and a lot of similar issues. And I slowly accepted the fact that this is a human problem based off of how the body deals with trauma. Right. And then another light bulb went off, and it made me start wondering, I wonder if the people that we went against, Iraqis, Afghanis, if they're going through these same types of things.
Absolutely.
And it makes it, if people could just understand that.
There is a song by Garth Brooks. I don't remember if he was part of the writing of it. It's the story of the Christmas Eve.
Yes. I know what you're talking about.
You know that one. Yep. Right. And how they both laid down their arms because they're just people caught in a trap.
Yeah.
Everyone who doesn't want to go to war and goes. Others have a very different take on it, and they do experience it differently as a result. They keep the priority of what their belief is very strong in them, and they don't have they have a different after effect. Mm-hmm. Some good, some not, but it's a different after effect.
Right.
Right. But they're human. The whole world is, it's one of the detectives, retired, I think Captain George Duca, good friend who's not retired. He just left that to do more when he retired from there. He's a great guy and has done some TV shows. It's a really cool person. He's on one of my Soul Talk with my name YouTubes, and he is just the neatest soul. So he risked everything. But the 17-year-old who was brutally raped and tortured and murdered in the woods, he had to stand over her body. I don't remember the year, 1980 something. Everything was the only ones I could talk about it that far back. But when we were doing a documentary, we talked about that. And he said, I still can see it all. It was the hardest thing I've ever experienced, is just staying, knowing what she went through.
Yeah.
And all of them, I say a lot of them, fish or golf, the men. The women get rooted in whatever it is they're rooted. When I worked with them, if it was a horrible experience, etc., I would come home, take a shower before I would see my kids. I would just tell them, hang on, I'll be right with you. And then I would put on extremely feminine clothes to alter something, to feel something different, something soft against the skin, whatever. And then whenever I could, after they were in bed and I had somebody there, I would go and dance. Whether it was at home or with a bunch of friends, I would dance. I wouldn't stop. I would just burn it off. It didn't matter. I knew that it was really important not to carry it, but how do you not carry it?
Yeah.
Right? But the further you get from it after a while, it doesn't, because I work with a lot of parents also who lost their children. And there's a group, I am close to some of the people there helping parents heal. And it's all about that. They all had the same problem, including the founders. And they're a beautiful spiritual group, non-religious, spiritual. Anybody can come. So when I look at all that everyone else has gone through, it gives me the reference point of what? The only thing I have is survivor's guilt. I lived through 3 attempts on my life, in my life, and I'm still here. And only by the grace am I still here. I have no clue. I got off a death sentence, literally 8 hours. I walked out 72 hours later, refused permission to treat, go away.
Wow.
And, oh yeah, Oh, livid. Well, they made a horrible medical mistake and almost killed me. But I refused to let them govern that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I would have survived. Lots of people feel that way and don't survive.
Yeah.
So we all find ourselves, because I think most of the world has had serious traumas. Very few people escape them.
I would agree.
Right? And even if it didn't come directly home, it came indirectly through people they know.
Yep.
And learning, I believe, and that's part of learning how to apply everything you know about being a soul. Everything you can consider matters to release everything around it. For me, my Brooklyn talk. Doesn't matter whether you have a brain injury or anything else going on. I've got a medical report that says I was born with a congenital deformity. I was paralyzed 3 times. I wore a body brace 11 years. Big deal. But everything was a great lesson and opened up creativity like crazy. Right?
Yeah.
When we realize and put aside the, oh, look what happened to me.
Yep.
I'm left with this. Look at everyone who's been left with or not here. And I always use that as my reference point to stop any self-pity in me. Years ago, I said, hey, I can't stand feeling that. That was ugly. So finding our way into the roots and the wings.
Yep.
Right?
That's something that I say it a lot on my show. As long as you are in that phase, and I think every veteran goes through that phase when they finally accept I got PTSD, and then they go to the other extreme and everything's because I have PTSD. And until you get out of that victim card stage, the healing doesn't start. You're not doing anything good.
That's beautiful.
From that.
So true. Because I look at it even in energy and say it's to the extent you stay in it or in any sense of the word, whether you're angry, whether you're depressed, whatever, the level of disconnect of your energy to your soul governs the outcome. And I'm all for learning how to do mindfulness and centering and all that again and again. I love, and if not for playing with creative visualization from the time I was a little girl, we called it daydreams. And then I got to analyze them as I got a little bit older and studied a little psychology and went into therapies and loved it all. And I went, oh, I had an episode where I lost the use of my left leg for 6 weeks. You could cut it off. I wouldn't feel it. Lying in bed in a hospital for 6 weeks. Oh, please. It was electrical acupuncture stimulation by chief of neurosurgery, who was a friend. And he didn't know why. When I stood up afterwards, I went right down to the floor. I had no left leg. And his face, I felt so bad for him. But I'm lying in bed for 6 weeks. Every day he comes in, he brings me wine. I don't drink it. I say, would you please get me something else like cannolis or something? I don't know. And I realized, Nancy, cut it out. What can you do to tell your nerve to muscles? Oh, you did dancing, ballet when you were 2. And you did toe by the time you were 12. You were at the American Ballet Academy training. Come on. Okay. So I started visualizing myself walking up a ladder to a tightrope, but first putting on toe shoes. And in my mind, I was dancing on the tightropes. I wrote a blog on it because I thought, hey, folks, if you think you're in a bad position and you see yourself just free of pain or free of this, it's not enough. You've got to give yourself that big stretch outcome emotionally, physically. Everything has to be combined. And then magic. So I did that most of the day, 3 days in a row, and then I walked like nothing ever happened. And nobody, they couldn't figure it out. I said it was inflammatory because I have no sciatic root. I have like 12 inches of scar tissue. But I walk, I can run, I can dance, but limited time.
Right.
But I don't care because I like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
The focus is different.
Yep.
So if listeners ever have that kind of need for anything, we know what it takes, right?
Yeah.
To explore the vision quest, to explore the outcome of anything, a diagnosis. I'm not saying you're going to be guaranteed it, but you're far better off inserting a program that takes into account your soul, is informed by the creator. And that light can penetrate and weave itself into a tapestry of healing for anybody if it's the right thing for you at that time.
Yeah. Again, you're sounding just like the last guest too. She said that you plan your own future out before you're even born. You map who you're going to interact with, who you're going to know, and everything. And the only thing that can change that is if you take your own life.
Yep. Well,
other than that, no matter how much you try to change it, you will be put back on your path some way, somehow. And so I do believe, just like what you said, that, if you believe it, you see it. And then if you don't, and you're one of those others, it just takes you longer to get to your path.
right.
I was not good in high school, so it makes sense that it took me longer to get to my path. I'm a slow learner, but at the end of the day, I think we all get there. It's how long do you have to enjoy it?
Exactly.
That's the truth. So I know we're getting a little bit long, but I still want to touch on a few other things. I do want to get into the detective side. Is there any cases that stand out that you were a part of that are really personal to you, that they reached you in a way?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I had lived in Bud Lake and then Flanders, which is part of Mount Olive Township, the two of them, New Jersey, Western New Jersey. And I knew most of the people in the police station. I worked with them. Then I moved when I married my husband, and I don't remember how many years later or not. Yeah. No clue. I got a call that a woman was murdered, and it was the chief of police, had been a captain when I knew him or whatever. And so he picked me up to take me to the scene. It was a fresh crime scene, maybe a day. And because I knew the area, I lived there.
Yeah.
I took a look, and there were 3 state police there also. I don't even know why they were there, which is, I never even thought about that. Why would they be there? Don't know. Anyhow, I said I'd like to walk around, not knowing who the woman was. But she died in the living room against the wall. All the blood was there, etc. And I walked down this apartment hall, and I go into the right, and there's a obvious daughter's bedroom, obvious teenage.
Mm-hmm.
And on the ceiling in red paint were all kinds of anger. And I laughed, and I thought, oh my God, her mom is great. I don't know what I would have done if my daughter did that. She already destroyed one carpet when she was growing up, but it was spray paint. It wasn't words. And it wasn't the ceiling that you have to off. I go, oh my God, her mom was so good to her and knew she needed to express it. Wow. So I come back out and I go into this tiny kitchen and I see a cup in the sink, and I think that's so unlike the woman. She was meticulous. That was the feeling. And a small window above, very small. And I looked out and I see a gazebo, and I think I see the killer there. And I come back and I describe him. In my mind, I see the killer. And I say, he's a druggie. He was looking for drugs, couldn't find it, killed her. Well, how'd he get in? It was a locked door. I said, that's your problem, not mine. I said, I don't know those things, and I don't have the forensics or anything else to go by. I just know what I see. So I'm just giving it to you. Use it, don't use it, do what you want. Yeah. I said, so they said, no, we know it's her daughter. I said, how do you know it's her daughter? She came out screaming, crying. They said, yeah, but she's it. We thought it was one of her ex-boyfriends because she's a tramp.
Wow.
Uh-huh. Now, it wasn't the police I knew. It was one of the guys. I just looked at him and I crossed my arms in my nice way, kind of. And I said, not only wasn't she, if you speak to them, they all respected her. She let go of all of them because she was looking for the right fit for her daughter and her. And it wasn't her daughter either. And you need to stop talking like that. That was it. So I said, the killer is next town over, etc. On the way home with the chief, I said to him, you're going to do a polygraph on the 16-year-old daughter, aren't you? He said, we have to. She was there. I said, do you know what it'll do to her after discovering her mother's body? I said, she will go mute. We can't help it. They had shown me a photo of her, the mother. I looked at it. I said, I know who she is. I don't know her, but we both danced at the Mount Olive Inn. She was one of the people who loved to go out, and her current boyfriends, whoever they were. And she was always such a nice person, even to look. I said, this is horrible. So I felt kinship because I think I don't know, she was 42. I may have been a little bit older at the time I did this. And 6 months later, it turns out they had a thumbprint in the kitchen. And 6 months later, the neighboring town, Necon, caught a guy stealing for drugs. His thumbprint matched the thumbprint. He was convicted of murder of her. He was exactly as I described. And he had been in the gazebo looking when she turned on the light. He went through the tiny window because he was skinny.
Yep.
And a few years later, I wrote my first edition of Psychic Detective, which was horribly written, no editing. I just was furious.
Yeah.
And I only sold it to my clients. And I'm talking in public at some library locally, and a woman stands up after I speak because I am so upset with how things went. And she said, I am the daughter's aunt.
Wow.
And so we talked, and she told me her niece went to Ohio to stay with her other aunt and be raised by them. She was mute. She had trouble, and then she didn't have trouble. She got out of it eventually. And then many years later, I got a call from the daughter. And she came over, and we hugged. We talked. She thanked me. I cried. I loved her. And she's married, has children, and I could rest easy.
That is awesome.
Couldn't rest easy. Was so, how do you take a 16-year-old, put them through the mill without explaining to them we have no choice, or give them a therapist right afterwards, something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just, at the end of the day, even if you did explain it, there's no way anybody can understand that. That's like saying, this is the reason why we have to break your fingers.
No, I know.
You know, and you're like,
I'm sure they told them.
yeah.
But there was crime victim advocacy was written and started in New Jersey with a man I was a volunteer for 10 years with his talks.
Mm-hmm.
And he was given 2 awards by 2 different governors for humanitarian service. I attended one or both. I don't remember. Yeah, both. And what I saw was how hard it is to understand what mental health rights are, what victim rights are for too many people who are so busy they can't be bothered.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's the story.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to bring you forward and give you the opportunity. I've had your website down here going, but I know you said you have a YouTube channel, and I'm going to give you that opportunity to tell everybody where they can find you. I know you can also get her books on Amazon. I will make sure that when I release this, all the links are down there in the bottom. I will even I'll even link it to Amazon so they can find your books that way as well.
Thank you.
If you'd like to tell anybody else where else they can find you and where else they can learn more about you.
Pretty much everything except my Facebook special group, which is my name, Psychic Detective. That's the other social media besides my personal page. I think my personal page is filled. It allows only up to 5,000. So that's the only other one. Everything else is on my website. They can be found, whether it's in-person retreats or online courses or whatever I do.
All right. Well,
Thank
I'm gonna
you,
put.
Donald.
Yeah, I had a great time, and
Me too.
as always, I learned something new from every guest, and I learned more than one today. So, I think a lot of people will get a lot out of this, and realize that you know, having this gift doesn't necessarily mean you're able to see what the next lotto numbers are, and you're going to be able to use this gift to become a millionaire. But it does give you the opportunity to have a life that is worth living like a millionaire, and that's finding the happiness from doing some good stuff with it.
Beautifully said. Thank you.
But I'll put you in the green room. We'll throw the exit video out, and I'll be right with you. All right.
Thank you.
All right. So as we said, there is a lot that goes into having a gift like this. It's not just about I'm going to do great things and life's going to be good. There's negative with positive. You have to have that in life. You have to have good with bad. You just don't get it one way. And I think, like she stated, there's things that you're going to have to live with, things that you can't unsee, and not everything is a blessing. But what you turn it into and what you use it for is the deciding factor of what it is, whether it's good or bad. So I hope all y'all enjoyed the show. Make sure you go to her website that we've had down here at the bottom, pick up her books off Amazon from her website, and maybe even sign up for a course and have another chat with her if there's something that you want to talk about or learn about. So I hope y'all enjoyed it. Remember, don't let the day kick your ass. Kick its ass. Y'all take care, be safe, and we will see you next week.